All right, so welcome to another deep dive. And today,
Yeah.
we're going to be looking at
Oh.
kind of a crazy media storm
Yeah.
that took down, like a veteran journalist and
Yeah.
and just started this nationwide debate. And buckle up, because this is a wild one.
Oh,
We've
yeah.
got insider accounts, we've got public reactions, and like the whole fallout.
Wow.
It all started with what seemed like, just like a normal interview,
Mm-hmm.
but like the kind you see on TV every day.
Yeah.
But it's spiraled. It's spiraled fast.
It's really captivating how one, seemingly offhand remark on live TV, it's like,
Yeah.
can just have this huge ripple effect. It's like
Yeah.
dominoes, but for
Right.
for media and reputation.
Totally, yeah. And it all revolves around this guy, Paul Danning.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the host of the Morning Current. And he had this reputation for,
Right.
let's just say he wasn't afraid to push buttons.
Yeah. His style was definitely confrontational. Some might even say aggressive.
Yeah.
He built his whole career on holding guests accountable,
Right.
often by challenging them directly.
Right.
And not shying away from those heated debates.
Right. So picture this, okay?
Yeah.
Paul's guest is Karoline Leavitt,
Uh-huh.
rising star in conservative circles.
Yeah.
And they're discussing media bias.
Yeah.
Pretty standard.
Right. Absolutely.
For,
Standard fare for a political talk show.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like initially the conversation follows a familiar pattern, right?
Yeah.
Both Paul and Caroline are,
Yeah.
they're making these well-researched arguments, pushing back on each other,
Yeah.
citing examples.
Right.
It's that back and forth that viewers of
Yeah.
the Morning Current
Totally.
came to expect.
Yeah.
It's like watching a verbal tennis match.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Volley is going back and forth.
Each point building on the last, you can almost feel the tension in the studio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then the tone shifts dramatically. Paul, in the heat of the moment,
Yep.
makes this statement that just becomes the catalyst for everything that follows.
Uh-huh.
He says, and I quote, "People like you are the reason this country is backsliding."
Whoa. Okay. Right away, you can feel the temperature rising. Like, what was Caroline's reaction to that?
So what's fascinating is she doesn't rise to the bait.
Okay.
She doesn't get flustered. She doesn't get angry.
Wow.
She remains remarkably composed.
Yeah.
And simply asks Paul to clarify
Okay.
what he meant by your people.
Okay, so that's interesting. It's almost like she sensed an opportunity there.
Yeah.
Like she knew she could kind of turn the tables.
That's precisely it.
Yeah.
Her response was incredibly strategic.
Okay.
By asking for clarification,
Uh-huh.
calmly, she shifted that power dynamic.
Right.
Suddenly, Paul was on the defensive,
Right.
forced to explain himself
Yeah.
in a way that frankly just made the whole situation worse.
And he tries to backpedal, right?
Right.
He tries to clarify. He's like, well, I meant conservatives, but
Yeah.
the damage is done.
The damage is done.
Yeah.
And that one phrase, "people like you,"
Yeah.
uttered in a charged moment on live TV,
Yeah.
that becomes the soundbite that ignites the entire firestorm.
Wow.
And the internet, as it often does, pounced on that 15-second clip,
Wait.
sharing it millions of times, often out of context.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Have you ever seen
Okay.
a seemingly minor event on social media just blow up
Oh, I've seen
into this huge controversy?
I've definitely seen those social media pile-ons firsthand. It's crazy.
It's like watching a wildfire spread, right?
Yeah. It's incredible how quickly things can spiral.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened here.
Yeah.
Within hours, the hashtag #FirePaulDanning was trending nationwide. Viewer outrage just flooded social media,
Yeah.
and demands for accountability came pouring in.
Yeah.
You could almost feel the collective gasp as people watched this all unfold.
And of course, advertisers started getting nervous.
Of course.
I don't want to be associated with this, especially on this scale.
Advertisers are acutely sensitive to public perception.
Wow.
When they sense even a whiff of controversy that could impact their brand,
Yeah.
they tend to react swiftly. And
Yeah.
in this case, the backlash was so intense
Yeah.
that several major advertisers just pulled their support
Wow.
from the Morning Current.
So now NBS News, the network behind the show,
Right.
is in full-blown crisis mode.
Yeah.
What was their initial response?
So their first move was pretty predictable. They suspended Paul Danning
Okay.
pending an internal review.
Right.
Classic damage control strategy, right?
It's like they hit the pause button, hoping the storm will blow over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to buy time, demonstrate that they're taking the situation seriously.
Right.
But the problem was
Yeah.
the public had already rendered its verdict.
Right.
That viral clip of Paul's statement
Yeah.
That became the defining narrative. And the court of public opinion was already in session.
Yeah, yeah. So the network's doing their review. Advertisers are like fleeing. Paul Danning's in hot water.
Yeah.
What happens next? Does the review help him out at all?
So, unfortunately for Paul, no, that review did not go his way.
Okay.
NBS News ultimately decided to cut ties with him completely.
Right.
They announced that he was fired. He would no longer be affiliated with the network.
So they really dropped the hammer.
Yeah.
What was the public reaction to that decision? I imagine it was pretty divided, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The nation seemed to split into two camps.
Okay.
One side, they applauded the decision.
Yeah.
They saw it as like a necessary step toward accountability in media.
Uh-huh.
They argued that people in positions of power, especially with platforms as large as Paul's,
Right.
they should be held responsible for their words.
They're basically saying there should be consequences for what you say.
Exactly.
Especially if your words are harmful or offensive or...
Yeah, precisely.
Okay.
On the other side, you had those who were just condemning the firing as a complete overreaction.
Right.
A prime example of cancel culture, run amok.
Yeah.
They saw it as this dangerous precedent
Okay.
where fear of online outrage could stifle free speech
Uh-huh.
and dissenting opinions.
So this becomes a much bigger conversation than just one journalist
Right.
and one, kind of
said.
off-color comment. I mean, this taps into like
Totally.
really deep issues about accountability and free speech in the age of social media.
Exactly. And it forces us to grapple with these really complex questions, right?
Yeah.
Like, is cancel culture a real phenomenon?
Yeah.
Or is it just this buzzword used to dismiss legitimate criticism?
Uh-huh.
How do we balance the need for accountability with the right to express
Right.
unpopular or controversial views?
These are questions without easy answers.
Right, exactly.
They're being debated all over the country.
Yeah.
But what about Paul Danning? I mean, what was his response to all of this?
Yeah.
Did he just like fade away quietly?
He did anything but fade away.
Right.
Paul released this whole video statement
Yeah.
addressing the controversy head on.
Right.
In the video, he doubles down on his initial comments. He claims he was simply speaking the truth.
Right.
And that he was fired for daring to challenge the media's narrative.
So he's essentially framing himself as like a martyr for free speech, like someone who is being silenced for speaking truth to power.
That's exactly the image he was trying to project.
Yeah.
And it resonated, with a segment of the population who saw him as a victim of this, oversensitive, politically correct culture.
Right.
They rallied to his defense,
Yeah.
praising his courage, denouncing the network's decision.
But of course, that video also further alienated those who already believed he was in the wrong.
Right, of course.
I mean, it probably solidified their view that he was just arrogant, unwilling to take responsibility for his actions.
It's a classic example of how, like, a single event
Right.
can be interpreted in these completely different ways depending on your existing beliefs and perspectives.
Totally.
What's fascinating, though, is how Paul actually leveraged this whole situation to his advantage.
What do you mean?
So instead of accepting defeat, he used the controversy to launch his own independent media platform.
Wow. Okay.
He created his own show, bypassing the traditional media gatekeepers,
Wow.
appealing directly to his supporters.
So he turned this whole thing into an opportunity.
Exactly.
He took those lemons that life handed him and made lemonade.
He did. He made lemonade.
Although a very controversial batch of lemonade.
It was a very controversial batch.
Yeah.
But it's a testament to his entrepreneurial spirit and his ability to adapt to a rapidly changing media landscape.
But what about Karoline Leavitt? I mean, she's been remarkably quiet throughout all of this.
Right.
Did she make any public statements about Paul's firing?
Yeah.
Or like the larger debate?
So Karoline took a completely different approach.
Okay.
She remained largely silent, letting the situation unfold without actively engaging.
So it's almost like she knew that sometimes the best strategy is to stay above the fray.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not get sucked into the drama.
Right.
And when she was finally asked about Paul's firing, she gave this very measured, strategic response.
Okay.
She simply said, and I quote, "I think people in positions of influence should be held accountable for their words."
It's a powerful statement because it avoids like getting into the specifics of the debate, but it still gets her point across.
Exactly. It's a masterclass in communication.
Yeah.
By refusing to be drawn into the mudslinging.
Right.
Caroline, maintained her composure.
Yeah.
She reinforced her image as this thoughtful, level-headed voice.
Right.
It's a stark contrast to Paul's more combative approach.
It really highlights how different people can navigate these kinds of situations in very different ways, and how those choices can have like a significant impact on their reputation and career.
Absolutely. But what's important to remember is that this incident goes far beyond just Paul and Karoline. It triggered this much broader conversation about media accountability, the power of viral outrage, the fragility of public discourse in the digital age.
It's like this whole situation held up a mirror to our society, forcing us to confront some uncomfortable truths about how we consume information, how we interact online, how we handle disagreements.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like we all have a front row seat to these media storms now, and we're all trying to figure out like how to process them, how to form our own opinions in the middle of all this noise.
Exactly. And it's so easy to get swept up in the emotion of it all, to react impulsively to like a soundbite or a headline without really digging deeper into the context. But, it's in those moments when things feel the most chaotic that we need to be, the most discerning.
You're right. We have to resist the urge to just like hit that retweet button or fire off a heated comment without really taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture.
It's about being more mindful, more critical consumers of information. We need to question those narratives that are presented to us, consider multiple perspectives, engage in respectful dialogue, even when we disagree.
It's so easy to fall into those echo chambers online, where we only see information that reinforces our existing beliefs. But that doesn't help us understand the complexity of these issues.
Exactly. And that's where this deep dive comes in, right? We're not just recapping the events. We're trying to peel back the layers, expose those underlying forces at play.
We're giving you the tools to like think critically about this situation. To understand the different perspectives. And to form your own informed opinions.
This whole situation with Paul Danning, it's a prime example of how quickly things can escalate in the digital age. How one comment can trigger a chain reaction that reverberates across the entire media landscape.
It's a reminder that words have power.
Exactly.
And that we all have a responsibility to use them wisely.
For sure.
It also highlights the need for like greater media literacy,
Absolutely.
We need to be more aware of how these narratives are constructed,
Yeah.
how information can be manipulated, and how our own biases can shape our perceptions.
The more we understand about how media works, the better equipped we are to navigate this increasingly complex information environment.
So let's bring it back to the central question of this deep dive.
Okay.
Was Paul Danning a victim of cancel culture gone too far? Or was his firing a necessary example of accountability in the age of social media?
Well, there's no easy answer to that question, right?
Right.
It's a nuanced issue with valid arguments on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, it really depends on how you define cancel culture.
Right.
How you weigh the right to free speech against the responsibility to avoid harmful rhetoric.
Right.
How you assess the role of social media in shaping public opinion.
And it's not about us giving you a definitive answer.
Right.
It's about giving you the context, the insights to like wrestle with these questions yourself. And come to your own conclusions.
Ooh, we've laid out the facts. We've explored the different perspectives. We've highlighted the key takeaways. Now it's up to you to connect the dots, consider the implications, and decide what this all means for you.
As we wrap up this deep dive,
we
want to leave you with a final kind of thought-provoking question.
Okay.
In the age of social media, where everyone has a platform and the power to amplify their voice, what responsibility do we each have when it comes to holding people accountable for their words?
It's a question worth pondering because the answer ultimately shapes the kind of world we want to create. A world where dialogue triumphs over division. Where understanding bridges the gap between differing viewpoints. And where the pursuit of truth remains our guiding principle.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
We hope it's given you some food for thought. Until next time.